Hello everybody, how are you? Hello everybody, how are you? It is time to start our day. It is time to work and play. Hello everybody, how are you? Hi guys, welcome back to Fairy Tale Week. Today we are going to talk about another fairy tale, but first let's talk again real quick about yesterday's fairy tale. Yesterday we talked about Little Red Riding Hood, and what I liked about yesterday was we didn't just read the regular classic Little Red Riding Hood, we heard from the wolf and what he had to say. And his story was a little bit different. There were a lot of things that were the same, but the biggest thing that was different was the reason why he ate Little Red and her granny. Do you remember why in his version? It was because he was starving. He hadn't eaten for such a long time, and all he really wanted was his favorite food, which was an apple. And he was looking for him, but apple harvest was so far off that he wasn't going to find one. But then he saw Little Red in her cloak, and she looked like a red, juicy apple. Then he saw Granny in her robe, and she looked like a green Granny Smith apple. So he felt he had no choice but to gobble them up. Today we're going to talk about a different fairy tale. Can you guess which fairy tale we're going to talk about? Got any clues? Look around me. Anything you see? What are we going to talk about today? Let's see. Big clue, big clue. We're going to talk about who's got the long braid? Rapunzel. First, we're going to read a story. We're going to read a book about Rapunzel. Then we're going to do some other things with her. So let's start off with our book, Rapunzel. Now, in this book, I'm going to need some help. When I go like this, I want you to say with me, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your long hair. We practice, ready? Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your long hair. All right. Also, while I'm reading, you have two jobs while I'm reading. You have to help me read when I go like this, and you need to listen for some fairy tale elements. We didn't use that word yesterday, elements. Remember we talked about certain things that are in most fairy tales? Those are the elements of a fairy tale. They often start with once upon a time or a long, long time ago. And then we said they could have talking animals, which we saw in yesterday's story. They often have princes or princesses, an evil queen or a witch, a castle. They have a problem that somebody's having that needs to be solved. And they usually end with they lived happily ever after. Yesterday's story, like I said, we didn't see a lot of that stuff. There were no princes, no princesses, no castles. There was no once upon a time or living happily ever after, but we had that talking wolf. So that was one of the elements to a fairy tale we saw yesterday. So again, you have two jobs today. When I go like this, you're going to say, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your long hair. And I want you to listen for some of those other elements in a fairy tale. So let's begin. Rapunzel. Once upon a time, here we go right away, there was a girl named Rapunzel. Rapunzel had long, beautiful hair and a lovely voice. She lived by herself in a tall tower on a hilltop. When Rapunzel was a baby, a witch had taken her far away from home through the forest and to this tower. Rapunzel was never allowed to leave. When the witch needed to visit, she would call out, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your long hair. Rapunzel would throw down her long braid, and the witch would climb up to the tower window. Rapunzel was lonely in the tower by herself. Sometimes a mouse or a bird would visit her, but she longed for a real friend. One day, a prince was riding through the woods when he heard a melody coming from the tower window. He thought, there must be a girl up there as lovely as that song. Suddenly the witch appeared. The prince hid in the bushes. He watched her call for Rapunzel and then climb up her hair. The prince waited for the witch to leave, and then he too called, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your long hair. Rapunzel let down her hair, but when she saw the prince in the window, she gasped. Who are you? She asked. The prince bowed and introduced himself. Then he and Rapunzel began to talk. They talked for hours. Rapunzel told the prince about life in the tower, and the prince listened. He was falling in love. The prince began to visit Rapunzel every day. She loved when he told her stories about the outside world. He talked about his horses and the beautiful streams he liked to walk along and the little village nearby. Rapunzel wished she could see what was beyond her tower. with me to my kingdom," said the prince one day. "The witch will never let me leave," Rapunzel sighed. The prince took her by the hand and promised to help her escape. Later that day, the witch saw the prince climbing down Rapunzel's hair. "We will leave tomorrow," he called up to his love. So what do you think the witch is feeling right now? I'll bet you she's pretty angry. She wanted Rapunzel to stay hidden and all hers. The witch was furious. That means yes, she was mad. As punishment, she cut Rapunzel's long, beautiful hair. Then with a wave of her wand, she cast Rapunzel from the tower deep into the forest. The next day the prince returned. "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your long hair," he called. Rapunzel's beautiful hair came tumbling down. But when the prince climbed up the window, the witch was waiting for him. The witch put a curse on the prince that made him unable to see. Blindly, the prince escaped from the tower. He called Rapunzel's name, but she was too far away to hear him. He wandered the forest, searching for his lost love. Many days passed. The prince had almost given up hope. Then one day he heard a lovely melody. It was Rapunzel. He was sure of it. "Rapunzel!" he called out. Reunited, Rapunzel and the prince embraced. When Rapunzel learned that the witch's curse had made the prince blind, she wept and wept. Wept means that she cried. But as Rapunzel's tears fell onto the prince's face, something magical happened. Her tears broke the witch's curse. The prince could see again. Rapunzel and the prince returned to his kingdom. There, far from the witch's tower, they lived happily ever after. Wow, there are a lot of fairy tale elements in this one. It started with once upon a time, there was a witch, there was a prince, there was a problem, Rapunzel was locked away, there was magic when her tears cured the prince's blindness. It ended with they lived happily ever after. There was a lot going on in there, wasn't there? A lot of fairy tale elements. So that is the story of Rapunzel. If you would like, you can act out the story of Rapunzel in a couple of ways. I made a tower, and I've got my Rapunzel here, and I've got her long braid, and then I've got the prince. Here he comes, riding in on his horse, and he can climb up the braid, and he could save Rapunzel. So you could make your own tower today. What can you make your tower out of? I made mine out of Legos and a toilet paper tube. What do you have around your house that you can use? Maybe some blocks, all kinds of things, I'll bet. See what kind of tower you can make for Rapunzel today. Maybe you can make a tower for yourself, and you could be on top of the tower, and you could act it out with your family or your friends, and you can be rescued, or you can go rescue Rapunzel. So that's one thing you can do today. But I started thinking about the story, and I thought yesterday when we talked about Little Red, we heard the one version of Little Red, and then we heard another version. So I started thinking, what could be a different version of Rapunzel? And my thoughts took me to what if, just what if, Rapunzel wasn't a girl and she didn't have long hair? What if Rapunzel was a boy and instead of long hair, he has a long braid? Would that be kind of a funny version of the story? Let's see if we could tell it with Rapunzel being a boy and a long braid instead of long hair. So now when I go like this, what are you going to say? You're not going to say, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your long hair." Let's say, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your long braid." So let's see what happens. We'll try to tell the story again, but using Rapunzel as a boy this time. You ready? Once upon a time, there was a boy named Rapunzel. An evil witch had taken him away from his home and locked him up in a tower. Every day the witch came to visit and yelled to him, let's move his beard, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your long beard." And he would throw his beard out of the tower, and the witch would climb up the beard and visit with Rapunzel. Well, one day a princess happened to be coming by, and she saw the witch up in the tower and climbing down the hair. So the princess hid behind a tree and waited for the witch to leave. When the witch left, the princess came out from behind the tree, walked over to the tower, and said, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your long beard." And he did. So the princess climbed up the beard and talked to Rapunzel. Rapunzel was very surprised to see the princess because he was thinking it was going to be the witch. The princess and Rapunzel had a nice time talking, and day after day the princess came back and climbed up the beard and talked to Rapunzel, and eventually they fell in love. Well, one day when the princess was leaving, the evil witch saw and came in and cut off Rapunzel's beard and threw Rapunzel into the forest. Oh, poor Rapunzel. When the princess came back, Rapunzel was gone. But she wasn't giving up hope. She had fallen in love and she knew she would find her Rapunzel again. So the princess went into the forest and eventually she found her bearded Rapunzel and they lived happily ever after together. We did it, guys. We told a different version of the story that we made up on our own. What's another version that you could tell? Think about it. How can you make the story different? Today you can write a different version in your journal. Like I said, you can act it out with yourselves. You can make a tower. Maybe Rapunzel wasn't in a tower in your version. Maybe she was in a cave. That would be kind of cool. You could make a cave and Rapunzel could be hiding in there and then throw her long hair out to the front of the cave. You can do all kinds of things with that. And I'm going to move these for right now because I have one more thing I want to show you that you guys can do today. Let me grab my braid that I have here. Okay, I have some hair, a lot of hair. I'm going to braid it, and this is something that you guys can do at home too. If you want to learn how to braid or practice braiding, I've got really just some yarn, just a big group of yarn here, and I'm going to show you how to braid it. When you braid something, you take it and you break it into 3 groups. You put one over on this side, one down the middle, and then one goes to the other side. So to braid, you take one side and bring it over the middle, so they switch places. Now you take the other side and bring it over the middle, so they switch places. And you just keep going back and forth like that. Now I go back to this side. I bring it over the middle, those switched places. Now I bring this side over the middle, and I just keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. And then you know what I could do when I'm all done? If I was going to act out Rapunzel today, maybe this could be my braid. Maybe I could put it on, let's see if I get it down to the bottom here. I could tie it closed. I could put it on me. And this could be my braid as I act out Rapunzel today. All right, guys, why don't you go have some Rapunzel fun? You can tell the story again. You could build towers. You could braid hair, make up your own story. Just go have a fun Rapunzel day, and I will see you next time. Bye, everybody.